All right, welcome everyone to the very first of hopefully many, many podcasts that we plan to do together. That, as of right now, is just being called the Retro Rewind. Mostly just because it's going to focus on our retrospectives of the last month, anything that we feel, is important, anything that's got us hyped, and that kind of stuff. So, of course, you know me. I'm your host, Retro Geek, Retro Geek Gaming, and off to my side here is Michael, who's going to join us today to just talk
Hello.
about any various subjects that we feel like talking about. And if you guys like this, you can always feel free to leave a thumbs up. That way, you know that you have seen it, you like this kind of content, you want to see more of it. Because I like to take that kind of feedback seriously with my channel to know, what people are watching. So, first topic, I guess we need to get out of the way is what are we currently playing, Michael?
I am currently playing Final Fantasy VII Remake for the first time.
For the first time.
Yeah. You want to know what? It's really stunning to me. I've heard so much about Final Fantasy games in the past and the soundtracks. What's been most kind of eye-opening to me is I always heard, the Final Fantasy soundtracks are great. And I don't know if I've ever been one to really focus heavily on soundtracks of video games. But this soundtrack is kind of blowing me away. It's kind of it's really impressive, the usage of the music and just how good it sounds. So
Well, yeah, sometimes I think a soundtrack can really make a game. At least for me, because I'm just a big Zelda fan, and I remember when I think it was Skyward Sword came out. It included a symphony disc of like a symphony doing Zelda music, and it was just gorgeous, man. To like hear what they did of like Wind Waker and the open ocean theme, and it's just like it had me crying because it was just like not only did it take me back to playing Wind Waker, but it sounded gorgeous. Like it was just so sometimes a soundtrack can really move you because if it's tense music, it really makes the boss fight better, and if it's really somber music, it can really make like a scary area or a place that's dark and haunting really, feel like that. So I think a soundtrack is a very important part of a game. At least for me, I always love listening to Zelda music. Final Fantasy is one of those ones that always took me, and like Devil May Cry, just because it's got some good rock music in it. So
it brings an interesting thought to my mind is, do Japanese game developers focus on the soundtrack a little bit more than maybe American developers? Or is there just more talent in that area um, than there is here, in the games developed here in the States? Because it really is just that good. And like you said, you mentioned Zelda, that's not developed here. Um, I think it's interesting. I wonder if that's like more of a focus for that region of the world in game development.
it probably is. Um, I don't know, because it depends. I know back in the day, like the actual NES games, they had to use a lot of interesting technology to make all that fit into the game. So they probably have some techniques that they know to make it sound really good. But I think that they focus more. I think it depends upon the company, because the company like Square Enix, they know the importance of Final Fantasy. They know the importance of, you know, not only having it look good and play good and sound good, but have it control good too. So I think it really depends. If it's a American company it's probably like, they're an indie developer and it's their first time making a game, they might not necessarily care so much. But then like with what I'm playing right now, Hollow Knight, the music's good. You know,
You're right.
the music is
Yes.
really good, and that's an indie developer. So I guess it really does depend upon the studio. But I do think that if you're talking like big studios, Japanese developers are probably more like we got to make sure that the music is really matching what's going on.
Yeah, and it almost feels more magical. The Final Fantasy soundtrack feels real like mystical and magical, and it's got the little melodies and the little chimes in the background, and it's real soft and beautiful, and it crescendos and all that. Like, it seems like they really just, I think that it's become its own thing, as the Final Fantasy soundtrack has kind of become its own expectation as much as the game has. So I think Final Fantasy fans are looking for okay, what's the gameplay going to be like? The story, right? Final Fantasy is very renowned for story, and they're very renowned for the soundtrack. I think that's pretty cool that each of these little sections of these games are like legendary in their own right. You know, the soundtracks, the stories, the characters. They've done a really good job. And this being my first Final Fantasy, I did a lot of research on what Final Fantasy I was going to play first. I mean, I nonstop Googled and YouTube videoed about all the different Final Fantasies, was scouring through Reddit threads, and it's just got such a devoted, passionate fan base. And I think that it's because they pay a lot of attention to detail, and I'm finally starting to see that.
Yeah, and I think it really does come down to the fan base because again, Zelda has some beautiful music. You know, just off the top of my head, I'm instantly thinking of like the Great Fairy theme, the big ocean theme. When you're like out on the ocean in Wind Waker, there's some really great parts, especially from Twilight Princess. So, um, but then you also have stuff on the opposite end of the spectrum where, like Xenoblade, for example, has a very rocking soundtrack. Also, every time you get into a battle, it's just like these hard rock chords, and it's just like, yeah, I can listen to this on its own. So it really, and even Final Fantasy, like I haven't really, I need to get back into Final Fantasy. I haven't really played it. You know, I have my reasons why I haven't really been playing it. But I still had an appreciation for it, even like when I would hear it in a symphony. You know, like when I think they made a symphony of it, and I listened to that.
Wow.
It still sounded great. So, yeah, I think it really does depend upon the developer and how much they care about it.
Yeah, and I'm really excited now that I'm getting into this game for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which was just announced. I'm really excited for Crisis Core as well.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like both of these games, maybe Crisis Core is not going to have the level of detail as the Final Fantasy VII remake and rebirth, but it does appear that a lot of love is going into that remake, and I know that that's a very highly regarded game. Um, I think it was PSP game, right? And it's considered one of the greatest PSP games of all time. And again, I've never touched it, so I'm really excited. It feels like a great time to be a Final Fantasy fan and to start being a Final Fantasy fan, especially with 16 coming up next year, which looks absolutely incredible. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's already piqued my interest because, like I said, you've gotten some of the people that used to do the Devil May Cry stuff that worked on the combat. So I can imagine that Final Fantasy's combat in that game is going to be insane. There's probably going to be juggling. There's probably going to be just all kinds of crazy combos going on. And then just be able to control the titans that you summon. I think that's going to be really cool. It might be the first time. No, it might be the first time I get back into a Final Fantasy game on PlayStation, but I think I am going to pick up Crisis Core, maybe for my Switch. Just because the fact is, like you said, I did hear it was a good game, but at that time I was just kind of off Final Fantasy. It's like I don't care for seven. I mean, I played seven. I played like an hour and a half of seven. I did like what I was playing, but I just wasn't into the whole turn-based combat at the time. Um, so that's one of the reasons why it kind of turned me off. But the 7 remake is not turn-based. Crisis Core doesn't look like it's turn-based. It might be up my alley, and it might be time to return back to the series. Because I've kind of gotten into more turn-based stuff now. I just had to be in the mood for it because I'm just not much of a strategist like that. I like to be able to change my actions on a whim based upon the opponents I'm facing. But that's just me.
I'm really impressed with the combat of Final Fantasy VII Remake as well, where you can issue your little commands. You've got your command menu. You could choose your abilities and spells from the command menu. You could switch your character and play as the other, the companions, and it's just it's been really eye-opening. I don't, it's one of those times where you think in your life, what was I doing this whole time? Why
Yeah.
was I staying away from this series? What was it that it didn't appeal to me? Because it's right up my alley. The storytelling is fantastic. Like I said, the soundtrack, the gameplay is wonderful. The graphics are beautiful. I didn't get the PS5 version. I'm using the PS Plus version that's available for the PS4, but it's still gorgeous, and it's smooth, and I haven't run into any bugs or glitches or anything. Seems like there was a lot of care put into it. I think maybe that's something you could play
Yeah, I
soon.
mean, I just think that as we've gotten older, we've just kind of gotten more of an appreciation for games because that's exactly what I thought. There was a while where I was kind of like, I think I'm done with Zelda. Like, I didn't care for Ocarina of Time. I looked at it and I'm like, I didn't care for the 64's controller, so I was like, I think I'm just gonna skip this. But I went back to Wind Waker, and it's like Wind Waker drew me in again. And I went back and I played Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, and I'm like, why did I not play this? And it's just like now exactly what's going on in Final Fantasy. Like, why have I not been playing these games? Same thing with Castlevania. But I have to realize I was younger, I had limited funds, and I saw like 25 Castlevania games, and I'm like, I cannot afford all this. But as I've gotten older, I've learned to expand further than just action games all the time. I can dip my toe in a Metroidvania. I can dip my toe into a first-person shooter. I can jump all in on a action adventure Zelda-like game. I can play however I want, and I can choose to just play this one or the whole series or whatever I want to do. So I think it's just as we get older, we sort of realize what we were missing out on. We see it in a different light than when we were younger, and it's like, that just looks stupid.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's any credence to the thought that we have less time to play now, so maybe we're really trying to savor the experience. When I throw on Final Fantasy VII Remake, I throw my headphones on, I dim all the lights, I got it on my big TV, I make sure the kids are asleep. You know what I mean? The wife knows that I'm ready to play. I'm all in on it. I'm completely focused, and I'm trying to get as much out of it as I can. I think when I was younger, I was just blowing through games at rapid speed. I don't know if I was taking the time to truly savor the games the way I am now. So maybe getting older, we are appreciating it more, and maybe it's because we're more selective with what we're playing, and we're really trying to get the most out of it in our limited time.
Yeah, maybe, but it's also, I think, just kind of playing a little bit of a devil's advocate with that. It's kind of also the opposite. Because like at least when I was in high school, yeah, I had a summer job and I was able to get a game, but then that summer, that was my only game. Like, I had more time to dedicate to that one game. So if it was a 1,000-hour game, I could dedicate the 1,000 hours to it. But now that my time's limited and I see like, oh man, these 20 games are coming out for the next year that I want to play, I don't have the time to sit down and maybe finagle through a 1,000-hour game. I might maybe want to put 20 or 30 hours into it. But the 20 or 30 hours that I can dedicate to it are certainly going to be, very deep diving, getting as much out of it as I can.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When I first got my PS5, the first game I played on it was Horizon Zero Dawn. And, we've talked a lot about that game. We love it to death. It took me 2 months to beat it, because of that limited time. So I do know what you're saying. That would have taken me 2 days when I was, in high school or during the summer back in the day. So you're right. But that's kind of the thing is I get to kind of really think about it and ruminate on that game for weeks and weeks. Whereas before, yeah, I would have the time to put the 1,000 hours into it, but I would put the 1,000 hours into it in 1,000 hours,
Yeah, and then move on
because
you got like friends and other stuff to hang out with. You don't have time for this. You're just gonna beat it real quick and move on. But I also think that as we've gotten older, we are a little bit more picky because we know we have that limited amount of time. So we're going to make sure we're going to invest into a game that we know we're going to love. And because we know we're going to love it, we're going to absolutely love it.
Yeah, and I wish I didn't have a backlog that was so huge calling me a liar, It's like my backlog is so ridiculous, and all the games that I want to play and I've wish listed or pinpointed on Game Pass to play, It's like...
Dude, you don't even want to see my backlog. I mean, if I have over 30 something, retro consoles sitting in storage, I can almost guarantee you that probably each and every one of those consoles has at least one or two, if not more, games that I've been meaning to get back to. Because I'll just go off and I'll like, I don't know, I'll just jump randomly into a thrift mall and like, oh my god, it was like 5 PS3 games, and I'll buy them and it's like, I'm going to play these right away. And 3.5 years later, I'm like, I still haven't played them. So it's like, yeah.
I'll go buy full price games and not even play them. I went and bought Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening for my Switch, and I popped it in and played maybe 5 minutes that night that I bought it, and then for some reason put it down and never picked it back up. It's like I just paid $60 to put this game into the backlog for what feels like it's been like a year or two now already. It's like, why haven't I gone back to that? I should do that, but yeah, the
You
backlog is a problem.
you definitely should. I think that you would enjoy Link's Awakening. I mean, I already played it on the original Game Boy, but just playing it on the original Game Boy was fun. So I can only imagine like the enhanced capabilities of the Switch and its advanced graphics and what it's capable to do now. I think it's gonna be a much better experience. But I definitely feel you on that because I bought The Wanderer for PS4 VR and I probably played an hour just to kind of get a feel of it, and then like I was like, I'm gonna come back to it later, and then Forbidden West dropped, and now Stray's about to drop, and now I'm doing Hollow Knight, and who knows what I'm gonna play next? Probably Xenoblade 3, so it's like by the time we get back to that game, we're probably gonna have PSVR 3. So it's like who cares?
So talk to me about Hollow Knight then. How's it going?
I'm doing good in Hollow Knight. I'm just roaming around trying to figure out what to do next. I'm not really trying to. Like, I just got the Dream Blade, I think, is what it is, where you're able to go into, like, the dreams and capture essence, which just adds a whole new level to the game. I never got that far before. And yeah, it's just been fun playing it. I have a deep appreciation for it than what I did at first. I think just because of exactly what we were talking about before, I had so much other stuff to play that it's like, you know what, this game's too hard right now. I don't feel like giving it the time. And so I just put it on the back burner and didn't even bother with it. But now that like it's the only thing that I'm playing and I'm giving it 100% of my focus, I'm really like digging deep into it and being like, I'm finding stuff that I didn't notice about it before, which is what I love about a game.
And how impressive. I think Team Cherry is the developer, and I think it's like a handful of people, or maybe is it two guys, or
I
a
really
very
don't know.
small handful. I'm pretty sure it's a very small group making this game, and what they've been able to do is incredible. The size of the game, I mean, it's infinitely larger than any other Metroidvania I've ever played. Um, you could put 100 hours into that game and not have complete seen everything. It's crazy. I've put, I think, 70 hours into it and still yet to beat it. And it's like that's on my Switch, and I've put like 50 hours into it on my Xbox, and it's just the amount of content in there is fantastic. They did such an amazing job, and Silk Song is absolutely one of my most anticipated games.
Yeah. So, Soap Song for you would definitely be your most anticipated. I'm looking forward to that too, but I definitely feel you on that. I haven't looked at the actual log of how much I played, but if I had to guess, I would probably say at least maybe 40 or 50 hours, and I've just taken out the first of those. I guess they're the dreamers or whatever, the things you have to take out to get to the Hollow Knight. Um, I've finally taken out the first one, and I'm working towards moving up towards the second. So it's just like, because again, I'm just exploring. I get a new ability, and I'm just like, okay, now I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning, and I'm going to explore every place that I was before to see what I can find that's new. I'm more concerned about exploring than about finishing the game. Because right now I just want to find as much as I can to where by the time I'm weird. I did this with Twilight Princess as well. I didn't get all the bugs in it, but usually whenever I beat a game, I don't go back to it. There's just something about it. So I try to finish as much as I possibly can before I beat it, because then by the time I've seen the ending, I'm like, I don't care anymore. So I don't want to go and basically get like 98% of this game done, beat the boss, and like, oh, you just gotta find one last item. Like, I don't care to find that item. I want to make sure that I'm thoroughly like 112% like what I think the trophy is for it. Like I wanna try to get all of it.
That's strange because I've never gotten a platinum or a 100% on a game in my entire life. And it's never even crossed my mind to be a goal for me. So, like, I'll start a game and I'm going to play it until I no longer am having fun. And if it's a good game, that'll mean when I end it, You know, if it's a very good game, I'll have fun till the end. You know, I beat Horizon Zero Dawn. I beat the Marvel Spider-Man recently. Um, when I beat a game, it's because it's a fantastic game, in my opinion, right? And I'm having a good time.
Hmm.
But if I stop having fun at any point in the journey, I'll just turn that game off and probably won't touch it again and have no consideration for whether I got trophies or achievements for it. And even the games that I really, really love, I'm not inclined to see 100% of the content. I don't know why. It's just never been. I'm really focused on getting that main story and getting most of the side content, um, most of the side quests done. I'll get side quests done for games where the side quests are story driven, kind of like Witcher 3. But if it's a lot of fetch quests and just kind of random discoverables and secret items and stuff, I won't do that kind of stuff. So it's interesting how different we are.
I don't know. It depends upon the game. I'm with you there. If I love a game, like I really liked Forbidden West, I went through and I platinumed that. I mean, because one, it's a little easier to platinum than the first game was. I feel like Forbidden West has a little bit of an easier trophy list, just because, especially with the hunting grounds, they want you to just get like one stripe. They don't expect perfection like they did in the first game, where it's like you got to get 3 stripes in everything. You got to perfect all the hunting grounds. So I felt like it was a little bit easier to platinum for one, but also it was just enjoyable to platinum. So I guess it depends upon what it is, because there have been some games where, I'm right there with you. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was actually that game for me, where it's like, yeah, this is a fun game. I'm having a good time, but there were just so many side quests. I do not give. By about chapter 8, I think I was just done. I like the story. I want to beat the story, and so I'm just gonna go through and I'm gonna, fight every last enemy that I can. I'm gonna do some of these amazing combos. I'm gonna enjoy the story. But I don't care about finishing up the side quests anymore, because most of them is just like, just run around in the world and find random items until you get 10 of them, and then come back. And it's like, yeah, but the items are randomized, and I have to. It's like, so no. So it really just depends upon the game. If it's something like Horizon Forbidden West, where it's like, not only did I platinum it, but there was way more to play, so I have stuff to come back to, I'll keep playing it. But if it's something like, what was it? Fist was a recent Metroidvania that I played, where it's like getting the platinum for that game was not only super fun, but it was challenging enough to where I could meet it. Because it really does depend. There are some games, I think Halo has some pretty ridiculous achievements to get, so I don't worry about getting them. It depends upon the game. If I think that I can achieve it, I'm going to try to achieve it. If I can't, or if, like you said, I just get to a point where it's like, I'm not even having fun with this game anymore, I do not care, then I don't care. I'm just going to move on, which is sad because I know it affects, my ultimate grade and all that. But, I don't care. If it's a game where it's like, yeah, I had fun with it, but now I'm not having fun with it anymore, I'm not going to touch it anymore, I don't care if my gamer score gets affected or not.
So when you buy a game, do you look at the achievements right away?
I try not to. But sometimes, yes. Sometimes I do, because I want to know. I don't want it to be super easy. There are some games like Job Simulator on PSVR. The trophies for that game are just stupid, ridiculously easy. Like you can platinum it. I don't even know if it has a platinum, but if it does, you can get it in like an hour. It's just ridiculous. And then some, I look at them and it's like, yeah, that sounds like it's possible. But then when I get to playing the game, I realize just how not possible it is. Like Scarlet Nexus, I've talked to you about that before, where I got everything in that game except for 2 achievements, and one achievement is really just to get all of the other achievements. So really it's just one achievement that I'm missing, and that's to get all the skill level ups or whatever. And it's just because you have to keep grinding. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to keep going to this one area at the end of the game and grind for 2.5 hours. I'm not doing it. I'm done. So that's at the point where I stopped. And that's just an example of, like, I thought that would be achievable, because from the sound of it, yeah, get all the brain skills. Okay, that sounds achievable. But when you actually start to play, you kind of realize just how not achievable it is without doing some major grinding.
Right. Yeah, I feel like you should be able to get all your achievements going through the game, some of the side content, and like not having to grind. I think achievements should come. I think it should be rewarding to like go out exploring and finding hard things. Some achievements should definitely be difficult, but to have to just grind and grind and grind, say an achievement is attached to some sort of RNG where you have to kill an enemy and it drops a specific item. I'm not a fan of that, definitely. But like
Yeah,
I said, I've never really considered achievements at all. I don't look at them. I don't really care. Um, but maybe that's something. Maybe that's something that will enhance my experience. Um, is going for those platinums and stuff.
well, I mean, that's exactly what they're meant to do. They're meant to be an enhancement. You know, because I mean, if you think about it, if all I had to do was finish Forbidden West, for an example, I could have knocked that out in a couple of hours. You know, I could just drop the settings all the way down to easy, and I could have just rushed right through it and just finished the story, not even cared about any of the side quest stuff. But the fact that they're just like, hey, yeah, why don't you do the hunting grounds? Why don't you try to get to level 50? Why don't you try to play the game on extra hard or new game plus mode? It's like, sure, because I like this game that much that I'm going to want to go back and try to do that. So I think that that's what they're meant to be. And so for certain games like Tunic, I don't really care about the achievements. Some of those achievements look like they're going to be super hard to get. I just want to enjoy that game, but it's too hard right now for me to give it a fair shot. But if it's a game that I'm really enjoying, I'm going to want to try to get as much as possible. Just because there's that, I know you haven't ever gotten a platinum, so it's kind of hard to say, but there's just something about getting a platinum. You kind of get this sense of pride. You're just like, yes, I have conquered this game.
I did it.
Yeah, I've conquered this. So I mean, if it's just for an example of Hollow Knight, if I really do get the 112%, that means I've explored every map, I've found every single boss, and I've beaten them. I've gotten like I have thoroughly explored this map, and I have found everything, and I am done. And that is a huge achievement to say. So stuff like
Does
that.
getting a platinum prevent replayability though? Like you said, you usually don't touch a game if you platinum it or if you 100% it. I'm inclined to come back to games because I know I haven't seen everything there is to see. So I'm willing to do a second or even third playthrough sometimes years later. Whereas you've seen it all, you know.
Well, not necessarily, because that's actually something that I kind of wanted to talk about, was how like Forbidden West recently added in those new trophies. So it used to show 100% next to my trophies, but now it says like 90 something because it added in a new set of trophies. So
Wow.
when developers do that, they can instantly add more playability to the game. But also, just because I got a platinum in it, I've already told you I haven't found like all of the vistas that can be found. I haven't found all of the little ruin places that you go into to find. They're almost like little shrines where there's just like the ruins and they're the only little mini puzzles. I haven't found all of those. There's still so much stuff that I could still do in this game that I haven't done. And that's not even
So
counting. That's not even counting the
all the
underwater
content, all that content's not attached to the
to the
to the
trophies.
platinum.
No, no.
Oh, okay.
So some games do and some games don't. Um, but it really does depend upon the game, because like if I had to start over again, like let's just say, I don't know, because this happened to me with Zero Dawn. I lost my save file, and I got a brand new PS4, and I had to start over in Zero Dawn. I had already gotten a good majority of the trophies at that point. I still don't even have the platinum for that game, but I still went through and I played it again, and I got the Ultra Armor again, and I enjoyed it again. So just because of the fact that I hadn't gotten all the trophies for it, I went back and I got some new trophies I didn't do before, and yeah, like I beat that game again, So like, just because you get a platinum, I don't think necessarily takes away from it. I think it just depends upon your enjoyability of the game. Because, like you said, if you don't like the game, you're not going to sit there and platinum it anyway. And if you like the game, and even if you platinum it, you'll probably still go through and play it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, depending upon how much you like it. Like, I remember I did that with the first. Was it the first Uncharted or the second? I know I really like the second Uncharted more, so it was probably 2. Well, I started off on like normal, and then I moved up to hard, and then I went to expert. Like I kept moving up and playing it again and again, and I did that with the first Dead Space too. I started on normal, and then I went up to a harder setting, and I must have played through the first Dead Space probably 4 times. So I mean, if you like a game, you like a game. You know, I don't think that you just necessarily getting every single trophy or achievement is going to ruin that.
Yeah, I agree. Makes sense.
Yeah, so we've actually been talking a lot about, you know, a lot of these older games. And, you know, we recently talked about Crisis Core and all that stuff coming back. Is there any older game that you would like to see come back? Or just like an older franchise that maybe hasn't been around since like the PS1 days or the Sega Genesis days or something?
Oh boy. You know, I know you're not much of a sports gamer, but one thing that I would like to see is a new boxing game, Fight Night.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever played the Fight Night games, but those are some pretty incredible games. And I know they were always on the cutting edge of graphics. You know, the player models were always so fantastically detailed. And I'd be really, really excited to see what a Fight Night on a next gen console would be like. It's a little newer, but it feels like it's been years since we've had one. I think we didn't get one on the Xbox One or PS4 generation. I think the last one was in the 360 and PS3 generation. So not as far back as you were thinking, but that's one that I've been really wanting. If I were to give my honest answer, it was Knights of the Old Republic, right?
Yeah.
But we're getting a remake.
Yeah.
So
that's
my
you're
most
already getting what
anticipated
you want
game.
anyway, so.
That's my favorite game of all time. That is my most anticipated game ever. The remake on that. So, but outside of that, I think Fight Night. I was a really big fan of Fight Night. I think it's got a lot of potential for online fighting, and it just boxing is in a really good place right now with a lot of stars. So I think it would be the perfect time to revive that franchise and have all the new stars and the young boxers that are in here fighting nowadays in that. So that would be my answer. How about yourself?
Well, I don't know, because my answer changes so much depending upon the console. Like, one of my favorite games for the Dreamcast, and actually one of Quantic Dream's first games, was called Omicron: The Nomad Soul, and that game just blew me away. Like, it has every single genre you can think of in it. There's a side scroll fighter, first person shooting. There's all kinds of stuff in it. So I would definitely pick that. If Quantum Dream was to actually like remake a game, that's not like Beyond Two Souls or Heavy Rain again. But it really does depend, because, you know, Panzer Dragoon was a good one that I'd like to see come back. But if I had to pick a game that I'm going to dedicate a lot of time to, it would probably be Dark Cloud. Dark Cloud was just a great series. I really liked it. Not only did it have action RPG elements, it had town building elements, so you had to make sure that your resources were good. And it was just ultimately fun. I liked it. I don't know. It's really just going to depend, because there's so many good games that have just kind of been left behind. You know, like Jak and Daxter hasn't been touched in a while.
Oh, that's another one for me that's big. I would love to see a Jak and Daxter.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see a Jak and Daxter trilogy remake. You know, I'm okay. I don't need a reboot. I don't need a new title in the franchise. I would love it. I really would. But if you could just remake the original game and then follow it up with another remake and, you know, give it the Final Fantasy treatment, I'm all in. I'm 100% all in. I'm even in for like a remaster, a true remaster for this gen, where they go in and up the, you know, resolution, up the character models, and up the environments and stuff like that. And even if it's more of a 1-to-1, I'm in. I just want Jak and Daxter. I need Jak and Daxter.
Yeah, and then I guess it would depend upon where it went because I know Microsoft technically owns the rights to it, and I'm not even talking about like a nuts and bolts kind of crap. But if I could get a true next gen Banjo Kazooie game that's a platformer, I'd love that too. So I mean, it really just depends upon the genre we're talking about. Because there's just so many good games.
There's so much potential for these for platformers, 3D platformers on modern consoles. Look at how good a Rift in Time was. The Ratchet and Clank, the new Ratchet and Clank, mm-hmm. right? I mean, there's just so much potential. And it really feels like Ratchet and Clank is the only one that gets the love, you know, that gets the full AAA treatment as a platformer nowadays. And those are some of the greatest experiences of all time. Where did the platformers go?
See, I don't know. I think that they've all kind of moved over. I don't know if developers are just kind of thinking, you know, this isn't going to sell. But I mean, Metroidvanias are very popular, you know, and they're just simplistic 2D side-scroller platformer games. So to give, you know, what's something that people say is one of the best platformers of this generation is Mario Odyssey. So I mean, it's like there is room for these platformers, and that's actually something that I kind of miss also, because like back in the days, like all we had was platformers. Because it was like, hey, here's this game, it's a platformer. Here's Banjo Kazooie. Here's Mario 64. Here's
Conker's Bad Fur Day. Here's Sly Cooper. You know, here's Jak and Daxter. Yeah,
give me another Sly Cooper also. Like that was some great stuff. Being able to sleuth around and just kind of go about the whole game being as stealthy as possible. Like it was just. Yeah, bring some of this old stuff back. Not everything has to be, you know,
serious.
Not everything has to be a completely gray shooter.
Drama.
Yeah.
Right, and like Last of Us, you know, everything doesn't have to be this completely serious drama piece. Why can't we have some fun, colorful games with funny characters that, you know, the whole family could play? I really miss those days.
Yeah, and that's actually. I think it's missing. Because, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but that's something that kind of got me out of gaming for a while. You know, doing like the PS3 and the 360 days, it seemed like everything that, I mean, there was nothing wrong with those games. I loved games like Prototype and stuff like that. But it just seemed like everything was the exact same. Like, I'm looking at the exact same game over and over again. But when I picked up my Wii U and I played New Super Mario Bros. U, and it was just so colorful, and it was a side-scrolling platform, and it was just all about this, just having this fun. It's like this has reinvigorated me as a gamer. Like I'm passionate again to try out these games, you know. So not everything has to be like that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. There's a place for them, but at the same time, I like color. You know, like there's absolutely nothing wrong with being able to crack a joke and a smile in a game and just be like, you know, well, you know, some guy falls down a well and it's like, well, I hope he's well. You know, just some kind of cheesy joke or something. Like you can have that kind of family fun experience still.
Yeah, look at Psychonauts. I mean, Psychonauts 2 came out. I was really hyped for that. Fantastic game. But it does kind of feel like a dialed back. It doesn't feel like a full AAA experience, right? It came out at a reduced price. It was Game Pass day one. It doesn't feel like it's what I want, but I want more of it. I want that times 2, times 3. You know, I want a giant platformer. A modern day, I think, you know, with these new consoles, you could make a game that looks absolutely incredible in that kind of world. I mean, look at Rift in Time and just the amount of stuff you could do with it, with the loading times and how creative they got with, you know, phasing to other dimensions and stuff like that, or times, or, you know, I mean, other developers could get super creative with that and no load times, and it would just be amazing.
Exactly, because like you said, that I'm trying to think now, but that's the only game in recent memory that I can think of that's been announced as like, here's this platformer game. That's the only one I can think of anyway in recent memory from the last 3 years since the PS5 has been announced, since the Xbox Series X has been announced. But yet we see stuff like Halo and Hellblade and, you know, all these other games, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. I mean, Hellblade was a great experience because it's all about, you know, it's a psychological game. You're meant to wear with headphones, and you're meant to hear voices coming from all around you. That's the experience that you're supposed to have with it. Um, Nothing wrong with them, but I'd like that. I mean, that's one reason why I think some of these games, like A Hat in Time, when I finally play them, it's just like, this is a good game, because this reminds me of the old school days, where it's just like, it's 5, 6 worlds. You collect these time pieces, and it's just like playing Mario 64. It's good fun.
I think that's why Nintendo holds such a special place in the hearts of gamers, because they're willing to be colorful, and they're willing to stick to gameplay over story. It feels like a lot of times, I mean, story is important in a lot of Nintendo franchises, but it feels like the gameplay is always the number one concern with Nintendo. Like, how fun is our game to play? The moment to moment playing of the game, what does that feel like? And it's going to be colorful, and it's going to be friendly, and it's going to be lighthearted, and it's going to be fun. And that's what they care about. How fun is our game, and can everyone play it? And I think that's why they're kind of the king of gaming, if you ask me. They've got a special outlook.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, because I mean, that is the most important element. Because just like what we were talking about earlier, what keeps you going in a game is the gameplay. The music could be awesome. You could have 8K, 120 frames a second. The game could be uber realistic. You could see like every bead of sweat on the guy's head. You can see all that, but if you press, the cross button and he just stands there and doesn't do anything, you're just like, what is this crap? I can't play this, and you're gonna hate it. So gameplay has to be the most important element, because everything else takes to the side. Like, yes, I know the story of Metroid Dread, and I know how it loosely connects to the other games, but I don't care. It was still fun to play. It was more about, outsmarting this Emmy robot to get out of its zone and find the next, power-up upgrades so I can go to the next area. It was about the gameplay experience more than it was about, the Chozo a long time ago did. Okay, cool, yeah, the story's kind of interesting. You kind of learn more about it towards the end of the game, but that's not what the game's about. Same thing with Mario Odyssey. Mario Odyssey has a very loose story, but you're not playing it for that. You're playing it to find all these collectibles, and to get all these abilities, and to throw your hat and take over something, and then like, I'm running around as a T-Rex now, destroying stuff. Like, that's what the game is about. It's not about, is Bowser going to marry Peach and choose Mario, and like, who cares about the story? It's like,
no one's ever cared about a Mario story, right? Like, I haven't. I'm sure there's some out there. Forgive me if you're one that does care about Mario, but the Mario lore and the Mario story was never the most important thing for me. It was, how fast can I get through this level? How many coins can I collect? The accuracy of my jumping, especially with all the 2D Marios, like Super Mario World and stuff, one of my favorite games of all time. It was about the gameplay. It was about getting the feather and going and flying through the air and collecting coins and, getting the fireball and shooting your enemies. And
yeah.
It was never about truly rescuing the princess. It was about having fun on the way there,
Yeah, and finding all the secret exits, so you can, like, you find a hidden path, and now here's a new, like, yeah, that's all that it was about. So,
yeah.
We're sitting talking about all these good games, so I hate to do this to you, but I want to talk about some of the worst games that we played, because I recently started playing a game called Laran, and it's an interesting game. I'll say that it's interesting. You can beat it in about 45 minutes. It's a really short experience, and it's very loose with its story, like what we're talking about. But I just don't know if you've had a game that has just, like, in recent memory, has been the worst game for you. Because for me, there was this game that came out for the Wii U. It was called The Letter. And I know it was done by one guy, so I don't want to diss him and say, he's a horrible game developer. Because there are some people that they can just be, one game developer, and they can make an awesome game. But the story in that game was horrible, and you could beat it in about 20 minutes if you knew what you were doing. Because, I mean, it wasn't scary. It was meant to be a horror game. It wasn't scary. And by the time you get to the end, you kind of feel cheated. Like, I spent money on this game. So,
right.
I don't know if you have anything like that where you literally didn't play this game. It's like I wasted not only my time, but I wasted money. I feel bad for the system that I played this on. I'm gonna go burn it. Like,
God, I'm trying to think. Like I was talking about earlier, I kind of, the second I stop liking a game, I stop playing it. So it's hard for me to think of an experience where I went through it and was just like felt forced to play it, and I don't know. Give me some ideas. What else do you got? What else do you got that you didn't like?
well, I mean, there was just a time I wasn't really being like a sadist or a masochist or anything, but there was just a time where I was willing to give cheaper games a try. And so it's like, yeah, it's like a $2 game, whatever. I'm not going to complain too much about it. It's $2. Who cares? It's a Wii game. It's $2. But then you play stuff like Dragon Master Spellcaster, and it's just like, why? I know I paid $1 for it, but I almost want to call Nintendo and complain just to get my dollar back. It's just like it's that bad. So I don't know. The letter for me is the worst. I just didn't know if you had anything in recent history, but yeah.
I think the most recent thing I could think that really disappointed me and really kind of angered me was Assassin's Creed Unity. I don't know if you remember how absolutely horrifying the launch was, especially playing it on the console. It was just a absolute nightmare. So I think that's the last time I really truly tried to get through a game, because I think they had the foundation there. It was a good game. I think now it's a great game running it, on consoles that can run it and playing it. It was a little too ambitious, I think, and it led to so many technical issues, and I tried to power through it. So that's really one of them that I could think of that really had me just like kind of squeezing the controller the whole time, thinking, what the heck am I doing here? It's like you could see the water in the desert, but it's not really the water, it's just the heat wave. You're thinking the whole time it's going to get better if you keep going, and it never did.
Well, we've talked about that before, and there's also been like the Watch Dogs stuff, and there's been the Cyberpunk stuff. Is it really even worth getting games day one anymore? Like, is it just worth waiting like a year or two and then playing them later on when the developers have had a chance to fix everything? Because I'm starting to think like, you and I, we talked about, and we'll probably talk about it later on in this podcast, some games that we're looking forward to that's been announced throughout the last month or so from Xbox and Sony and stuff. But is it, I mean, I know they're going to be on Game Pass, so they're going to be, available for us to download anyway. We're paying for it, might as well play them. But if we had to pay for them, would we wait? Like, would we wait to play, Final Fantasy, or would we wait to play, Redfall or any of these games when they come out if they weren't already just included in Game Pass?
I think there's a handful of franchises where I'm a day one guarantee. But more and more as I get older and as games get worse at launch, I'm less inclined to purchase day one. There's a handful, like when the Knights of the Old Republic remake comes out, I'm playing that day one. I don't care what shape it's in. I want to know, I want to play that game again, and I hope it meets my expectations. But yeah, anymore, I'm more inclined to wait. I even bought Horizon Forbidden West day one, but I didn't play it right away. I immediately started hearing on Reddit and Twitter and everything that there's some tech issues, and only recently did they fix, with the new patch within the last couple of weeks, did they fix some visual issues where there was like some static looks to some of the assets and some kind of grainy looks to some of the floral patterns and the forestation and stuff. They just fixed that recently, and it's like, God, if you're gonna take several months to get a game to where it's going to be at its best, I think we are at a place where it's better to wait. But it is hard, like you said, with Game Pass. I just want to play. If it's coming to Game Pass day one, I'm already paying for it. Might as well play it day one. But if it comes to like purchasing, I'm more inclined to wait and read reviews and look at patch notes as they come out and see what's really going on with that game. It took me over a year and a half to buy Cyberpunk 2077, and I'm glad I waited because it was a much better experience than I think I would have had at the beginning.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. I definitely mimic that statement. There's a handful of games like Breath of the Wild 2.
That's day one.
It doesn't matter. It's, even if you say yeah, it's gonna be in a brand new console. Okay, well, I'm gonna buy that brand new console and I'm buying the game. Like it's, that's it. I love Zelda games. They're gonna be day one purchases. I love Metroid games. They're gonna be day one purchases. So definitely a handful of games. But there's gonna be others, like you said, where it's like I kind of was like, I don't know about Cyberpunk. I'm gonna wait on this one. Like CD Projekt Red, you've done some good stuff. Witcher 3, Witcher 2 definitely.
Right.
But this is a new IP. This isn't Witcher, where you have the same engine going and you're just upping. This is a new IP. Let's kind of see what this is like. And you've also been saying you've been working on this game since like the 360. So like let's wait. And good thing that I did. Like so when I finally get around to playing that game, I know I'm going to enjoy it because now everything supposedly has been worked out of it. I don't really know how true that is. And then the exact same thing with Horizon. Like I loved Horizon Forbidden West, but yes, I did have some technical issues come up where enemies just seemed like they just kind of phased in. And I think one time I phased through a mountain somehow. So it's like I remember one time I found a cave, and I don't know how I even did this because I don't even think this cave is meant to exist. But I found a cave, and it just led to a big gray open area where I just like fell forever. So it's like,
yeah,
it was like, okay, what's this doing here? But that didn't deter me from enjoying it. I just stayed away from that area, and it was fine. It never happened again. But yeah, sometimes it's worth waiting. I think, especially if you're gonna, especially now with Sony charging $70 for a game. I mean, I expect something to be a little bit more polished, even if it's, every game's going to have bugs. I'm not expecting a, perfect game. I'm not going to expect to, run into a wall for 15 minutes and, then I'm going to magically just, I'm not expecting that, but at the same time, it can be polished enough to where, again, I'm not having to look like some of these games have looked like you were talking about with Unity. I think it had like the face was missing, it just showed the eyeballs or whatever. It's like,
yes,
that's not excusable. Like, that's a game that I'm going to definitely be waiting for because I don't want to see that. That's nightmare fuel. So, and if I had to pay $70 for that game, I would probably be upset. So,
yeah, and it feels like the most ambitious games are the most bug-ridden games, which is unfortunate because we're always anticipating the giant, ambitious games, right? That are going to have hundreds of hours of content and all this player choice and agency to get you through the story in any way you want to do it, and then that just kind of leads to bugs. That's just bug fest, like a Bethesda game. Oh yeah, you're gonna have the time of your life, but you're gonna be ridden with bugs the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe it's better to wait with certain franchises too. It's better to wait. Like I'd say anything Bethesda. I'm really excited for Starfield, but am I gonna buy it day one? I don't know. Well, it'll be Game Pass, so there's a good chance I'll download it and fire it up.
Mm-hmm.
But if it wasn't Game Pass, was I going to buy that day one? I don't know. I don't think so. Not after Fallout 76. I think Bethesda has a little making up to do to the gaming community.
Yeah.
Because of how bad they flubbed 76.
Well, that plus, I probably wouldn't have gotten it anyway because, I mean, maybe it's just me. I don't know if I was the only one out there that felt this. But when I was watching Starfield, I just kept getting a No Man's Sky vibe. And so it's just like,
right.
How much of this game is going to actually be done? Is this going to be ready? And yes, you can go to these 1,000-something planets, but they're going to be very barren because it's not quite there yet and they should have waited. Or is it going to be this full experience that they're promising? So, because I mean, like you're talking about, the most ambitious games usually are the ones where it's just like, yeah, they're ambitious for a reason because, they're ambitious and they're going to take a long time to code. So, I'm excited for Elder Scrolls 6 whenever that comes. The next Elder Scrolls game, I'm sure is going to be great. I had a great time with Oblivion. I really need to try to finish Skyrim, but there's just so much to do in Skyrim. But Skyrim
Yeah,
is
you don't want to go trophy hunting in Skyrim.
yeah. So that's just one of those kind of things where we're talking about though. Skyrim now is probably in the best version it's ever been now because it's been out for like 10 years. Like it's
Oh
been out,
yeah.
it's been out forever. So by the time we get to Elder Scrolls 6, yeah, I'm gonna be excited to play it. But how much of it is going to be finished, and how much of it is going to be ready? So take your time coding it, please. You know, I'd rather wait next gen and get a true proper Elder Scrolls game. But like Redfall looks like it's ready to go. It looks like it's a smaller experience. Also, how much is Starfield ready? Because that's the one that's the big ambitious game that they're talking about. It's going to have hundreds of worlds and colonies and building ships and all this other stuff. And it's like this feels very No Man's Sky, where it could be a lot of fluff.
Right, and is it going to take years to get to where they promised it would be? It seems like more and more we're getting promises, and then the game comes out, and it takes a year or two for the game to meet the promise,
Yeah.
if ever. And sometimes they move the goalposts and say, well, now this is our new promise.
Well, sometimes that's a good thing. I guess just being in today's world is, I guess, a better thing because back in the old days, a game would just launch and that was it. Like you bought a PS1 game, that was it. And if it was a disappointing game, it was a disappointing game. But now, thanks to the benefits of like cloud gaming and people voicing their opinions and stuff like that and updates and stuff, we can say, you know what, that didn't work. Why don't you change it? And then the developer can change it and make the game better and make the fans happy. Instead of before, where it's like, yeah, you should have done that. Yeah, well, we're gonna have to wait till the next game now. Like, you're just gonna have to wait for the second game for that to happen. So
It's a double-edged sword, though, right? Because
Yeah.
some developers will think, oh, the game's not ready. Let's just throw it out there. They're going to buy it anyways, and we'll try to fix it. Look at Anthem. Anthem turned out to be a complete disaster
yeah,
because it just wasn't ready, and it wasn't. Maybe it would have never been ready. Maybe that was a game that should have just been scrapped, but they just threw it out there, and then they made this roadmap, and we're gonna fix it, and season 2 or whatever they were gonna call it, or world 2, or I don't remember what it was gonna be because I didn't care because the game was garbage, but. They got some people to defend it by them saying, oh, they're going to fix it, and then what happened? They just discontinued it, they discontinued production on it, so I think it's a double-edged sword. Yes, they can fix stuff, but also we're going to get a lot of releases that are broken at launch, so like you said, it's probably best in the age we're in to just wait at least to see a review,
yeah.
I think the day of pre-ordering is done for me. Even with the Knights of the Old Republic, I might buy it day one, but I don't know if I'm going to pre-order it, because what if I wake up that morning and on Twitter it's trending that it's a hot, steaming mess? You know what I mean? I want to see at least some kind of opinions on a game before I buy it nowadays.
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, I don't really go into physical stores anymore hardly, but I do think that my days of pre-ordering are definitely done. I didn't like doing that to begin with, just because of the fact of like, look, stuff can change. The game could always get canceled or something. But yeah, I'd rather wait. Like I'm the kind of person that I'd rather go into a physical store, maybe a month or two later, and maybe the game's half off now because it didn't sell as well as they thought, but it's still enjoyable. But I think that I don't know. Gaming's in this weird state now. It's in a weird state because yes, we can't update it, and
Fix it.
we can fix it. But how much of that comes down to the actual publisher? Because I think that was the issue of
Pushing.
Yeah, I think that's the actual issue of like Cyberpunk, for example, was the developers were saying, look, the game's not done yet. We need a couple more months. We need another year. We need to have it delayed. And the higher ups at CD Projekt Red were like, no, it's been delayed enough. The fans are mad at us. Just release it. We'll fix it later. And that ended up backfiring on them. So I mean, how much of it comes down to the studio and how much of it comes down to the developers? Because a developer could say, "Oh, hey, look, this game's not done. We need more time. We need more time to push it." It's like, yeah, but we need to make that holiday rush. We need to make that, we need to make that Christmas money. We got to do something.
Yeah, I like to vilify the publishers more than the developers. I kind of see developers as good guys. They're the good guys. They're the ones that are passionate about it. Not all the time, but most of the time they're passionate about the projects they're working on. They want it to be the best, absolute best version of itself. And I guarantee there's a lot of stress in those developer meetings and in those buildings when they know they knew Cyberpunk 2077 was going to be a steaming pile of garbage on Xbox One and PS4. They knew it, and they were probably freaking out, thinking, I cannot believe that we're going to have to push this out because our publisher won't give us more time.
I mean, yeah,
And what is our reputation? And now look at their reputation. It's taken a major hit.
yeah. I mean, they definitely had to know, because I mean, if you're talking about review copies coming out, all they can show is the stock footage that we've already pre-prepared. You can't show any actual gameplay footage. That says a lot about what the developers knew and what the publisher knew. Now, it's kind of a 50-50 thing, because, yeah, some developers don't care about the game. It's just a paycheck for them. But I do think that some actually do, because their names are behind it. For an example, if you think of Kojima, you know he puts his heart into a game. That guy is passionate about the project. He wants to do the project, and his name's behind it. So if it's a bad game, it is a bad game. It is solely his name. Same thing with Masahiro Sakurai, because he puts his heart into Smash Brothers. He makes sure that the characters play like they do from the game. He plays the games himself to make sure that the moves are like spot on, and he puts a lot of passion behind Smash.
So did Todd Howard.
Yeah.
That's what Todd Howard, and I think he took a big blow with Fallout 76.
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of Todd Howard footage from the past, and when they were making Morrowind and when they were making Oblivion, the absolute passion that man has for these games, it's unparalleled. It's really impressive, and
it's good because it's because their names behind it. Because I know that if I was a developer, and I'm like, I really want people to understand my passion and my vision. This is me on a plate. Like, this is me in a game. That's
right.
that's what I would want. If whether I was an artist, whether I was a musician, whether anything that I do, that's my reputation. Same thing with like E.G. Onuma, who is currently the producer of Zelda games. He wants to pass it down to younger generation, but he's not going to pass it down just yet. He's going to make sure he finds somebody who has the same kind of passion and foresight for Zelda as far as what's going to work before he passes it down, because that's exactly what Shigeru Miyamoto did. Miyamoto's another example. When you hear him, you think Mario, you think Zelda, you think of these, you think Pikmin, you think of these great Nintendo franchises that he created because his name's behind it. So I think that the developers are passionate about what they do, especially the ones that like they produce, or what's his name, Cory Balrog, I think, is for God of War. Like,
yes,
yeah, like those people like that, they really are just like, yeah, this is me, because this is my name.
They care.
Yeah,
and that's
why I'm producing the game, I'm directing the game. This is me. So
that's why I'm more excited for the Callisto Protocol than I am for the Dead Space remake.
Yes.
Because Glenn Schofield is behind it, who was the head creative director, writer, and energy fuel tank for Dead Space 1.
Exactly.
He is the reason that game was as good as it is. And I know for a fact Callisto Protocol is going to be great. So that's when I may purchase day one. Because
exactly.
I know the name behind it. I know that that's coming from an extremely passionate creative director that's going to make that game into an incredible experience.
Yeah, and not only when you're watching it do you see the influence that it has back to Dead Space, but that instantly gets your attention, because what gets your attention at the very beginning of the trailer? If they started showing all that stuff, you're like, what is this? This is another Dead Space clone. I don't want to play this. But what did they say at the beginning of the announcement trailer? They said, from the creator of Dead Space. They wanted to get your attention because they knew that his name had a reputation behind it. Same thing with ReCore. Back when Microsoft was showing off ReCore, they said, from the producer of Metroid Prime. Like, they used the previous works to know, look, you love Dead Space. We know you love Dead Space. You're gonna love this. So,
Yeah, you can
yes,
trust that it's going to be good.
yeah. And so
And it looks incredible. It
it does.
looks incredible. The dismemberment in that game looks so next gen. The little arm, they blew the arm off and the little bone is hanging out of the arm and it's dripping the gore out of it. And I'm just like, this game is going to be incredible. I'm going to die a million times just to see all the death animations because that's going to be incredibly fun. They're going to have so many great ones in there. Super excited. That's a day one for me, I think.
Yeah, and so that's just an example of how marketing works. They know exactly what they're doing. I don't know how much the studio actually cares, as long as they get their money for Callisto Protocol, but they know that the fans care because it's like if the game didn't have anybody behind it, they would just release the game. But the fact is, they knew what they had. So it was like, this is from the maker of Dead Space. This is from, the producer of Metroid Prime. This is from, X game that you love. Because like you're talking about, a remake is just a remake. You're just taking Dead Space. You're just putting a new patch of paint on it. Basically, you're just upping the resolution, maybe making the controls a little different. But it's the same game. There's nothing new. But Callisto Protocol has a lot of new.
And it not being Dead Space gives them a lot of flexibility in the storytelling and the gameplay loop. And, there's not a lot of... There's expectations that it's going to be good and that it's going to be Dead Space-like, but it's not carrying the weight of the Dead Space name to where it has to be a specific experience. If
Yes.
they want to throw a couple curveballs at us and they want to change the gameplay up a little bit or go left instead of right with the story... they have the freedom to do that, and that's what's got me excited too. It's like this is going to be a whole new sci-fi horror experience, and I'm gonna eat it right up.
Exactly, because it's like what we talked about earlier with Kojima. Yes, Kojima did some great stuff with Metal Gear, phenomenal stuff with Metal Gear, but he was held back by the studio. And I haven't had a chance to play Death Stranding yet, so I can't speak upon it. But that looked like that was going to be pretty good. But now that he's going to be working with like Microsoft in the cloud, what kind of crazy ideas is he going to have? How much is Microsoft going to hold back, or are they just going to write him a big fat check and just say go nuts?
I think Phil Spencer. I think that's what he's wanted to do, and a good example. I guarantee he'll let Kojima do what he wants to do because he let Obsidian make that Pentiment game. I think it's called, or what is it called? I think it's that. Why is the lead creative director and writer of Pillars of Eternity making some weird, 1800s or 1500s side-scrolling adventure RPG point and click? Like, I don't know what that game is, but they let them make what they wanted to make.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's Phil Spencer's entire vision is let's get all these developers and let them do their thing, and it's going to pay off. So I think whatever Kojima's doing, he's getting to do whatever the heck he wants to do, and I don't know if that's the best thing, I don't know if maybe he's going to be a little too ambitious or too wild, but I'm excited
it might get really weird because,
yeah.
He's done some weird stuff with Metal Gear, and I believe he did some pretty weird... he was behind PT, I believe, so he did some pretty weird stuff with PT. So
Death Stranding is a little weird too in some ways.
So who knows how weird he'll get, But as long as it's not too out there, I think the fans are gonna be
eat it up.
Yeah,
he's one of those names where he's a day one for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I definitely need to try Death Stranding, especially because it's now included with PlayStation Plus. So.
Yep.
So how much do you think that's probably? I think that's probably is going to be the best idea. It's just to let these studios basically get these people, and do what they want with it. Because that's something that I love about, at least I feel I like about Nintendo, is like, for an example, they own Retro. They own 51% of Retro. They could at any point in time just point at Retro and say, you're going to make this game right now. Another Donkey Kong Country. Boom, go for it. But instead, they're just like, what does Retro want to make? So that's what I want to see. I want to see these harmonious companies that work in tandem, So what's Microsoft going to do now that they have, the developer of Call of Duty? Are they going to basically say, make whatever game you want, go nuts? Or are they just going to tell them, no, stick to the formula, make Call of Duty? And if they're telling Kojima, yeah, go nuts, do whatever you want, that's what I want to see. I think that works out better for gamers. Yes, sometimes you get some weird games, but you have a lot of smaller studios that can work on remakes, or they can work on remasters, or they can work on a sequel game. You need to let the head, go nuts. Because if I was, I just don't know why this is hard for me, I guess, because if I was the executive head of a studio, and Cory Barlog came up to me like, look, we know you really are looking forward to God of War Ragnarok, but I have this crazy idea, go for it. I don't even want to hear it, just go for it. Yeah, sure, you got to pitch it to me, just like Marvel has to have the director come up and pitch their idea of, like, this is what I think this movie's going to do, and the villain needs to be this because of this, and it's going to tie into the... Okay, you got to pitch it still, but I would be okay with it. Like if Kojima came up to me and said, I got this idea for this game, and it's going to be a sci-fi horror game that is taking place in an infinite loop in a house, and I want it to be a Silent Hill game. Well, okay, that doesn't sound like Silent Hill, but let's try it. Because like I would go for it.
Right, the proof is in the pudding for a lot of these guys. Let's let them do what they want to do with new IPs. I want to see new IPs.
Exactly, because what was it? I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but the guy that used to work on Castlevania, now he makes the Bloodstained games. Those are good games.
Iguchi, I think.
Yeah, those are good games, because he knows what he's doing with Castlevania. Konami apparently has no interest in Castlevania anymore, but, proof is in the pudding. The guy is known for that. I think it's Ifune or whatever his name is that used to make the Mega Man games. Yeah, he slipped him on Mighty Number 9, but like he's known for Mega Man. Let him do some new ideas. He doesn't have to be stuck behind Mega Man. So yeah,
wow.
I think that some of these people just need to sort of just be given the reins to something. Because like I would love to see that. Like Platinum Games is the kind of company that I think can make just about anything. And so I think they just need to be handed an IP sometimes. Like, here's Star Fox, go nuts, make a Star Fox game. Make whatever franchise. Make a new IP, do something.
That's why I liked Bloodstained, because it's by the guy you're talking about. It's Koji Igarashi. And and he made Bloodstained Ritual of the Night and Bloodstained Curse of the Moon and fantastic games, and it's like you knew it was going to be fantastic because he was Castlevania,
Yeah, and at a time when Castlevania was sort of falling off the map, he brought that back, and you would think that Konami would care about that because it's half of the namesake of the genre that it's known for,
That's my answer to your previous question. If there could be a series come back, I mean, I would say 2D Castlevania.
2D Castlevania.
Yeah.
And
we've had 3D ones recently, but 2D, a proper 2D Castlevania, a Symphony of the Night 2, would get me going. Symphony of the Night 2 it would instantly skyrocket into one of my most anticipated games ever, It's like, that's something I would love to see.
Yeah, I definitely follow you, because like Dawn of Sorrow on the DS was probably one of my favorite Castlevania games. It was great because it was bigger than I thought it was. Like I thought this was just gonna be a short little Castlevania game, and I finish it and like there's 2 other characters and there's another part of the castle. Like, oh man, okay.
Portrait of Ruin was fantastic. Circle of the Moon was fantastic. 2D Castlevania is money. They're just leaving money on the, they're just leaving money in the bag. They're not taking it out. It's millions of dollars they could be making.
They really are, because we're getting like the Advance collection, which brings back all the old Game Boy Advance games in one collection. But it's like, what I would like? I would like a new one. Like Castlevania 64 was fun. The recent one, the Lord of Shadows or whatever, it felt very God of War like, but it was okay for what it was. Too much God of War like for me, but it was still enjoyable. But yeah, having something, because it is half of the namesake. What we talk about all the time, Metroidvanias. We love Metroidvanias, Hollow Knight, Fist, but it's like we're getting Metroid games, but we're not getting the Castlevanias. So definitely having a Castlevania come back, I think would be great. Konami could um, just make money, even if they don't make it. They can just hand it off to. They can just sell the IP to Nintendo. Nintendo would, bring it back in a heartbeat and resurrect it. So
Yeah, I wish.
So yeah, that would be fun. I need to actually finish watching the Castlevania series on Netflix. I actually need to go back and finish that because I started watching it and then I just stopped.
Yeah, I need to watch it. I've heard it's really good. I'm surprised I haven't watched it considering it's my, top 5 franchise of gaming for me. But
Well, that plus it's short also because I think it's only like 5 or 6 episodes a season, so it's like it's short. You can probably finish it real quick. So
yeah,
I really do need to finish it. There's no excuse other than just laziness because like I get caught up with games. I've been meaning to watch the second season of The Witcher, and I haven't watched that yet. So it's like there's just no excuse except for just lack of time, either work or house chores or family or whatever. So always something.
yep,
But
always.
did you have anything else you wanted to talk about? Because I think I've gone through everything that I can think of, and we've had a real good time chatting up to this point.
Yeah, I've had a good time, man. I don't really have anything else, and I look forward to the next time.
Yeah, I wanted to do it at this time because we have the supposed Nintendo Direct that's rumored to be out next week. I don't know how true that is, but I just wanted to leave that open just in case because if that did come out, I wanted to be able to create a video on it. But I'm thinking that we could start doing this at the end of every month so that way we could talk about, hey, yeah, July. July was crazy. Let me tell you what happened in July, and we talk about this, and we talk about August and September, and just it's all, retrospective or a retro rewind, if you will, of what we've done. But what we can do is just to wrap up a couple of extra minutes here with this. If there is a Nintendo Direct next week, what would you want to hear from it? And do you think there would be any big like surprise game that they could announce?
I think the best surprise for me and what I want is Donkey Kong. I want a 2D Donkey Kong. Um, Tropical Freeze was fantastic, but I bought it on the Wii U. For God's sake, I'm ready for a new Donkey Kong, and I think that's easily the answer for me is Donkey Kong. It's one of my top franchises of all time. It's fantastic. I'd love my kids to be able to get into a full-fledged brand new Donkey Kong, and that's really all I want to see.
That was just a tough as nails game, so it's tough.
Yeah.
I would actually like to see it come back, but maybe get like the recent treatment that Nintendo's been doing, like with Kirby or with Mario. Maybe you can have some kind of like a 3D open world kind of game, but it's still tough like that. I don't know. Yeah, I think
that would be interesting. I would love a 3D Donkey Kong.
I think yeah, I think that would be really fun, and it could be a platformer. It could even be a platformer. Why not?
Yeah, 3D platformer Donkey Kong, and I would lose my mind.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love to see if the Game Boy Advance rumors are true and GameCube. I think that, I mean, granted I have a GameCube, I can pull it out at any time, but I want to see them keep adding value to the NSO so I can keep justifying having it. Because like you and I talk about all the time, Game Pass, such a huge value. They add all these games to it. I know what's coming, blah blah blah. All these old games. Same, and now with PlayStation Plus with the extra and the premium, you're getting these games. You're getting the old stuff. I want to see that. I want to see Nintendo just go all in.
It does.
Yeah.
It does feel like Nintendo's falling behind in their online services. I mean, they've always kind of been behind, but now they're really falling behind in their online services and what they're offering. I do think that the classic consoles are fantastic, but give us day and date Nintendo games for a premium subscription price. I'm in. Or give us a giant catalog of downloadable Nintendo classics included with your subscription. And then I'm all in on that as well. So I think they really need to up the ante for that online service. So I do hope to see that.
Or even if they don't do day and date, there's a lot of games. Like, for an example, they included Splatoon 2's Octopath expansion. But you could just throw in Splatoon 2 in there. I mean, that game is like 5 years old. People who have it have already bought it. So if you
You're
want to
going to give it more life. Yeah.
yeah, so if you want to get people excited about Splatoon 3, throw Splatoon 2 into your NSO for people that pay for the expansion pack, and boom, people are now hooked on it. They're going to go buy Splatoon 3. So it's like, or again, like Breath of the Wild, another 5-year-old game, get people pumped for the second one. You can bring out these older games. They don't have to stay, full price.
And go the Nintendo route and make it where it's like 30 days downloadable and then you're done, Like, it doesn't have to be a constant ability to download the games.
Mm-hmm.